The other thing that happened yesterday was the green list. We waited so long for the green list to come out. They knocked off 5 countries, just whipped them away. Eoghan Corry, the travel writer, is with me now. Eoghan, what countries can we no longer travel to safely?
2 that count, Malta and Cyprus. We also can no longer travel to San Marino, Monaco and Gibraltar if you could get there in the first place, because 2 of those countries don't have airports. We now have about 10 countries. It's very easy to go through them, actually. There's so few of them. Hungary and Slovakia in southeastern Europe, the 3 Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland and Norway. And as I say, the 2 really important destinations that are still on the list are Italy and Greece. Italy really is the one that counts, because less than 9% of our connectivity off the island was to the old green list countries, and Italy is the only one that really matters in terms of international trading, inbound tourism about 400,000, outbound tourism about 350,000 last year. It's the only country that would really merit a mention if we weren't in this extraordinary situation of a very, very tight green list.
Is it not inevitable, Eoghan, that we're going to see more countries fall off the green list? Because we know from news reports, and we know from what the Minister was saying on Newstalk Breakfast a short time ago, incidence of COVID, it's rising right across the continent. So if you're going on holidays, there's a distinct possibility, even if you're going to a green list country, that by the time you're coming home, your country may no longer be on the green list.
Not inevitable at all, because the European approach has been to treat the 27 as a unit and treat them as regions. So you will have a warning in France, don't go to Catalonia, a warning in Norway that there are 10 regions that if you're arriving you're going to get tested from. We seem to be alone, first of all, in being so slow in delivering a green list. It took until 2 weeks ago, but also in this treating this it almost as a blanket ban is the wrong word, because you can still fly to and from those countries, and most people are flying to and from those countries, very few going to the green list countries, but you have to self-isolate on your return. For instance, the Canaries was one of the lowest rates in the world. It's treated as part of Spain, whereas Greenland, which also is one of the lowest rates in the world, is part of Denmark but is treated as a region. There's no consistency here, Jonathan, and it's really creating all sorts of extra barriers to those people who are in the inbound tourism industry and the aviation industry trying to work their way out of the biggest crisis anyone has seen.
But at the same time, Eoghan, they have a responsibility to protect people and keep them safe. And if the incidents are rising in countries that Irish people are told it is safe to travel to, then we are increasing the risk of bringing it back. It didn't come here on its own. It was brought by people who were away on holidays.
Absolutely, and if we have a squeaky clean record on this, and we can stand up and say we're one of the safest countries in the world and we've one of the lowest coronavirus infection rates in the world, we're in a very strong position to go back out and win back the tourism business that we've lost in 2021 or whenever it resumes. But in the meantime, we have to guard what we have and make sure we have something to open, and also to guard our connectivity. We were one of the most connected islands in the world at the beginning of March. We need to preserve some vestiges of that. And it's not like we have to sit down, scratch our heads and come up with a plan. The plan is already in place. It was introduced by the European Union on May the 20th. They wanted borders to stay open as much as possible with all the safeguards. We're not the only ones who've made sacrifices. We're not the only ones worried about importing cases. Everybody else is doing this, but they have a coherent strategy to start letting the drawbridge slowly and carefully back down again. We seem to have no policy.
It's a big but, right? It is a false hope, because we know that this virus is going to come back. We've seen what's happening elsewhere around the world. We know the United States is still a basket case, not to mention South America. International travel just isn't going to happen this year. And one might argue the sooner we come to terms with that, devastating and all as it is for the industry, the sooner we can start planning for 2021. That if we keep stop starting, or creating false hope that people can travel and then they can't, we're doing even more damage than we otherwise would.
2 things there, Jonathan. First of all, international travel is happening. We had 19,000 people, nearly just short of 20,000 through the airport on the busiest day of last week. There's only 9 flights of the 112 today to green list countries. People are flying to non-green list countries. 12 flights from Cork, 10 from Shannon, 4 from Knock. It is happening. The problem is that the government has, sort of cocooned itself, to use a current phrase, away from what's actually happening, and is drawing up their policies based on something which is at odds with what the rest of Europe is doing. They all realise connectivity is going to have to come back at some level. It's not that the entire countries that we have close dealings with are basket cases. For instance, if you took Westphalia out of Germany, the entire country would be, apart from one province, would be on the green list. It's called management. It's called going down into the detail, rather than just taking the European CDC list and saying these countries have a lower rate than Ireland, they're on the list. These countries have a higher rate than Ireland, they're off the list. We could even take the European standard of 20, which everybody else is applying. That would get important countries like Germany, like Britain onto it, and Poland. There are 140,000 people living in Ireland from Poland. It's not like it's the Ireland of our childhood, Jonathan. 17% of us were born abroad. We need to stay connected.
Well, hang on. We get back there on. It will happen. There will be, hopefully, a vaccine towards the end of this year, the start of next year. It will happen again. We are an island. We have an opportunity to protect ourselves. Why can't we accept that? I know that there is a business imperative, but the public health imperative has to take.
It's not just a business imperative. And the thing is, waiting for the vaccine is not a coherent strategy. It's not something that anybody else is doing. Although there are countries that have locked down, that there are about 30 of them around the world. But the question for all of them, St. Helena would be an example, where Napoleon went to exile. The question for when you decide to lock down is what happens next. We're not in that position because we did keep the airports open. There was this very strong movement to close them. What we do need is to manage the connectivity that we have. And instead of saying that there's only 10 countries on the green list, that we have a proper strategy for the countries that are low risk, that are high risk, and more importantly, the regions. Canary Islands is further away from Madrid than Dublin is.
But they're also more concerned about us bringing it to them as opposed to them giving it to us, I would imagine. But Eoghan Corry, I know you've another engagement to get to. Thanks very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Jonathan.